We now are putting the international in the international forum, and I'm delighted to welcome four friends, four colleagues with whom the AJR works very closely. I'm delighted to see on the screen three colleagues who worked previously at the AJR as volunteers through the Action Reconciliation Service for Peace. Ricarda Pasch, Sophia Engel and Merit Jagush. Very nice to see you again. And also to welcome Susanne Frane from the German Embassy, the Head of Education and Culture and Education at the German Embassy, for a session on confronting the legacy of Nazism. I'll just give you a quick introduction. Merit is originally from Hanover, and she worked at the AJR from September 2016 for a year. After her voluntary service, she moved to Münster to study law at the Westfälische Wilhelms University and at Charles University in Prague. Sophia is from Unna, near Dortmund. She worked at the AJR from September 2018 and is about to start her bachelor's degree in textile and surface design at the Weißensee Kunsthochschule in Berlin. And Ricarda, who joined her during that year, 2018 to 19, joined Sophia, originally started at Coventry Cathedral. She's from Minden, near Bielefeld, and she's doing a bachelor's degree in European Studies at Maastricht University. And Dr. Frane, Dr. Susanne Frane, as I mentioned, is the Head of Culture and Education at the German Embassy. We're delighted to work closely with the embassy on a number of initiatives, including many cultural, social and community activities. And it's a great pleasure to welcome her to lead this conversation from between our colleagues. So I can see Ricarda, Sophia and Merit. Can I see Susanne? Ah, there you are, Susanne. Let me hand the floor over to you, and we look forward to your conversation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Michael, for these warm words of welcome, and hello everybody on the chat today. I'm very honored and delighted to join you today for this important two-day conference, reaching out and connecting the next generations, and especially chairing this particular panel. Let me start off by paying tribute to the inspirational and really tireless dedication to reconciliation and peace that is at the heart of this conference, and that is thanks to all the organizations, institutions and individuals involved in this two-day international forum, the Association of Jewish Refugees, the Action Reconciliation Service for Peace, shortly ARSP in the UK, the individuals, the amazing volunteers, three of whom we have here today, and also the partners to this endeavor, the Jewish News, and also the Chelsea Foundation. And it's very timely indeed. This is a special year, truly, to reach out even more to the next generations, as the AJR is celebrating its 80th birthday this year, and the Action Reconciliation Service for Peace is celebrating its 60th birthday. So this is the year to talk about this, this reaching out to across generations. And this particular panel, as Michael has already said, it's the international sort of part of this, but also capturing the German perspective on reconciliation and peace, with the Action Reconciliation Service for Peace being one of the institutions, and basically bringing the confrontation with National Socialism into society, being a spur into action, and with the help of almost 200 volunteers across various countries, young volunteers. And we are very privileged in the UK to have about 14 of those young German and Polish volunteers delivering towards this work towards reconciliation and peace. And for those of you who are not that familiar with the work of the ARSP, the Action Reconciliation Service for Peace was originally initiated by Protestant Christians in Germany in the late 1950s, with this particular aspect, bringing basically words or turning words into action with young people, helping people who suffered and have suffered and are still suffering from the atrocities of the Nazi regime. And at a time when populism and aggressive nationalism and anti-Semitism are creeping back into our societies across Europe, not only in Europe, but across the world, the work of the ARSP volunteers is more important than ever. And you, the volunteers here with us today, shows every day that we all are the most powerful weapon against this threat, and that we need to lead by example. And education across generations is an important part of this. In German, we have a word which says Herzensbildung, very old-fashioned word, but very true. It's the education of the heart. So we must know in our hearts that and minds that speaking up against anti-Semitism, against prejudice, against racism and violence is the right and the decent thing to do. And we are very fortunate to have with us 3 of these young volunteers coming to the UK at different stages in their lives to be champions and advocates of reconciliation and peace. And we thought we'd start off by letting each of the 3 give us an emotional and powerful and personal insight into what they experienced here, what they took away from it, and what inspired them to come out here in the first place. So each of them will talk for about 8 to 10 minutes about their personal experience. Then we'll open up the floor and include every one of you in the audience. So please, if you have any comments or questions, do write them in the chat so that we can then open up the discussion later on. And may I now ask perhaps Sophia to kick us off with your story. Thank you.
Well, so I was 19 when I came here. So I didn't do my service straight after school. I always knew that I didn't want to go into studying something straight away or just going to working straight away. So I always knew that I wanted to do something, but I didn't know what I wanted to do. And I ended up having a year of studying in Münster as kind of a filler for that year. And one of my best friends from UNA, she did a service with ARSP as well. She went to New York with them and she did actually very similar work to me. So through her, I got to know ARSP. And, you know, a lot of people in Germany go and they do work and travel, or they go and they work in the kindergarten or do something like that, like sort of a gap year. That's quite normal. But I didn't want to do that because I wanted to do something that went a bit deeper. And through my friend who did the ARSP service, I found them, and it was kind of superficial reasons that brought me to such a deeper meaning, because I found this and I saw what they're doing, and I went through the application and the talking with the people there, and I was fascinated, and I thought, you know what, this is exactly what I want to do. And in the end, I got the place with the AJR, and I also had a place at the university. And I knew that working with survivors would be so meaningful and so special and so unique, and would be my last chance to do something like that. So I had to do that, and it was the best decision I've ever made so far. But it was really one of the best decisions, and I was so lucky to have come to the AJR. I couldn't have been luckier. I actually had the choice of going either to Ukraine or to London. And as I lived in England before, I thought, I really want to go back. I really want to go back home. But also I kind of want to have a new adventure. And during the time where I had to decide, the AJR website was down, so I couldn't even see what they were actually doing. So I kind of went in blind. But I am more than happy that I did that. I think one of the reasons behind me choosing this way is also that I've always been extremely interested in history. When I studied in Münster, I studied history and history of art. I thought that I learned a lot there, but I did learn a bit. And I also majored in history in my school. And I personally think that knowledge isn't only power, it's also responsibility. And once you know something and you know something isn't right, or wasn't right, you have the responsibility to act on it. And only through exposure, I really understood the depth of what I was doing. Because before that, I didn't know anything personal about Judaism. I didn't know any Jewish people, not consciously, but through working with survivors, being surrounded by people connected to everything, not only atrocities, but also to the positive sides of the work that's being done today. It opens your heart and your mind in such a way that you cannot understand when you haven't done something like this in a way. And I think not only for work like this, but in general, just meeting people, sharing experiences is the most important thing. It's the only thing that makes you understand other people, listening to them. And I think that's the most important thing that I took away from this year, is that sometimes it's not your turn to speak. Sometimes it's just your turn to listen, and to listen carefully, and to remember, and to keep those stories in your heart, because there will be a time where there's no one who witnessed firsthand. And I know this is something that everybody talks about a lot. But through having met people who were those first viewers, who experienced those things, and they get to share their stories with us, they kind of live on in us, and we can share them further. And they taught me values that I carry on throughout my life at the moment. It's not that I'm doing any active work at the moment, but just through my being, through my speaking with my friends, through meeting new people, I continue to share those values and this knowledge that I have gained here. And so I can only say again, it was really the best decision that I've taken so far. And I'm very, very happy that I did that.
No, thank you very much, Sophia. Maybe we move on to Ricarda, who will share her experience at the Coventry Cathedral with us.
Yes, so first of all, I came to ARSP because of my teacher who did a voluntary service in Israel. And I knew that I would not go to uni straight because I didn't really know what my path would be. And I wanted to extend my social bubble, meet people from different backgrounds. So I signed up for Coventry Cathedral and got some experience in peace building. But unfortunately, the project fell apart. But at the time, I was already visiting a Holocaust survivor in Birmingham. And I met her once every month and wrote down her story. She was very active. She gives a lot of speeches and is active in interreligious dialogue. And she really became my friend after some time and gave me a lot of life advice, and also showed me that you should always stand up, never be a bystander, and speak out for your rights and for other people's rights, doesn't matter where you're from. And in February, I joined the AGR then and worked in the office. And I was responsible for the Kindertransfer claim. So I supported members to sign up for the compensation. And again, in the office, I met a lot of people, a lot of survivors or first-hand experiences. And I was always astonished that no one judged me because where I'm from, that I'm from Germany, and that everyone was open and interested while we are engaged in HAR. And also once I went on a holiday with survivors, and yeah, they really took me into the group, and one man gave me a kippah, and he created them for the funeral of his wife, and he always carried a few with him. And he said that he's not very religious, but he's very Jewish in a cultural sense. So he gave me his kippah and trusted me to look after it and to cherish it. And to this day, I still have it. And yeah, I learned a lot about the Jewish religion, and I keep on to be interested. So for example, this summer I volunteered at the Jewish festival in Krakow and met a lot of Jewish artists, and we have our own way of keeping the memory alive of the Holocaust. And yeah, I was also marked because I decided to study European studies because I was interested in European history as well, and Jewish history is a great part of the European history. And also because of Brexit, I thought there are a lot of movements against the European Union, but it's a great way to keep everyone together and be a community. So now I'm very active against hate speech, against minorities, because I think now we have a world where everything is digital and a lot of crime and racism happens in the online world. So it's important to fight against it also on these platforms. And I really was marked by this year at the AJR.
Thank you, Ricarda. And last but certainly not least, Merit, can you share your story at the AJR with us?
Yes, so first and foremost, I would like to thank you, Susanne and Michael, for the kind introduction, and also Deborah for the invitation. I'm very honored to be part of the plenum today. So the seed for doing this service with ARSP was planted when I read the diary of Anne Frank, and that is when I was about 13 years old. So Anne's age when she had to hide during the Second World War. And reading this book had a great impact on me. And a second very moving experience was the trip to Auschwitz in my 10th grade with my school class. And yes, so I again was very touched by the experience. And then I got interested into my country's history and in history in general. And shortly after the trip to Auschwitz, I read an article about a boy who did a voluntary service with ARSP in Israel. And I thought I could do the same, and I applied. I got invited for the assessment center, and as Ricarda and Sophia, I was lucky to get the project at the AJR. And yes, so there are so many highlights. I can't name all of them, but there is one special moment. I would visit an elderly lady on a weekly basis every Thursday. And normally we would just sit on her sofa and having a chat about English weather or English food. And one afternoon, she suddenly told me her story, how she was a hidden child during the war, how she lost her parents, how her brother got killed by the Nazis, and how she escaped from the Nazis. And then she said to me, well, that's the first time I ever told this story, because she could never tell the story to her family because she didn't want them to feel bad for her. And to me as a German, she was finally able to tell the story. And that was a very, very special moment for both of us. I believe it was such a relief for her to finally being able to tell her story. And I'm very grateful for the whole year. I also like to remember celebrating Friday nights with my host parents or with the staff of the AJR, and celebrating Jewish holidays, meeting inspiring and amazing people. And so my work included the social part. So I would visit 5 or 6 elderly men and women, all Holocaust survivors or refugees. And I would just spend the afternoon or the morning with them and go for a walk or have a cup of cup of tea. And on the other hand, I would do some administrative work. So I would be responsible for the application process for future volunteers, which included writing lots of emails, and I would try to be a helping hand whenever needed. And yes, my message for others is, first of all, do a voluntary service with ARSP. And if you can't, then meet people of different cultures, from different countries, with a different religion, of a different age. And then you will realize that all of us are so similar. And I think this realization doesn't leave any room for racism or anti-Semitism. So be open-minded, yes.
Thank you, Merit. And you also included already a message for other peers and for other young people. Perhaps, Sophia and Ricarda, what would your message be to other young people out there, perhaps listening in? It's about the next generation. So what would your clear message to them be?
I would keep to the message my lady said me, to not be a bystander, be open, try to understand, and then, yeah, no hate can ever occur if everyone would do that.
So I would say nearly the same as Merit, because like I said before, I think that exposure is the most important thing. And I think experiencing something like this is the most important thing too. So doing a service is just, you're not only doing a service to others, you're also doing a service to yourself. And yeah, I think what I also learned during this year is really listening. I think listen and try to meet people that are different than you, and you'll just grow.
No, thank you. I've just checked our chat, and we have, please keep your questions and comments coming. I'm just checking the chat. David, Bia has, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, has also applauded the work of the volunteers, and also he's been working with them in a project supporting survivors living in the Chicago area. And he also says, which is a very important point, that there are also significant costs to the volunteers themselves taking part. So maybe that is something to bear in mind as well. That significant funds need to be raised. So it's all, again, also about funding for these institutions and for these programs, which needs to be secured and made sure for the future as well.
We've had, sorry to interrupt, I've had a number of questions that are coming directly to the hosts.
Okay.
I'm going to hand over to, I'm going to spotlight Ros as well, who, when you're ready, can ask the questions. I know some people are messaging you directly.
Yeah.
Is that okay with you? I'm going to...
yeah, absolutely. Go for it. Yes.
Ros, who is from our outreach team.
Hello, hello.
Hi.
It's really lovely to see Ricarda, Sophia and Merit. I had the pleasure of working with them, so lovely to see you all. So the first question, I know Merit, you did allude to the fact that you had been to Auschwitz and also read Anne Frank, but somebody has asked what you all knew about the Holocaust before applying.
Before applying, well, we learned about the Holocaust at school, so I knew the facts, I would say, but I had never met a Holocaust survivor before, and I think that is what really is the touching moment. Yeah, I knew the hard facts, I would say, yeah, I learned a lot more during my year about the Holocaust.
Lovely. So had any of you ever heard a survivor speak in Germany?
I haven't. I don't know about the others.
Neither have I, no.
Okay. So somebody has asked how your experience and of the ARSP project in general has influenced the attitude towards refugees in current day Germany. Would you know about that?
Our personal or the general?
General.
Attitude?
Yeah, the general attitude in present day Germany.
I think it's very mixed, but from my experience is that everybody is quite welcoming. But the thing is, I'm also in a very left-wing young bubble, so I don't think I can speak for the whole of Germany.
Sure. Okay, should we move on? So somebody has asked, did working with the AJR urge you to delve into your own family's connections with the Nazi era? How difficult has it been for any older members of your families to discuss these issues?
Yes, I spoke to my grandparents about the Second World War before I did the voluntary service, and my grandparents were a little child during the war, so yeah, especially my one grandmother is very open about this topic, and she left Eastern Germany and moved to the West just after the war. So that is always her story. I mean, she was too young to be an active part of the war. But yeah, I mean, they are on the perpetrator's side, and I know that, and I can't change it. Yes, it has always been a topic, and I think speaking about it is the most important thing.
Absolutely. Okay, Ricardo, any comments on that?
My grandparents, when I was very small, when they were still alive, so they didn't talk about like what happened to Jewish people, but spoke about the war in general, and also about the inner German refugees. So that's why I was also interested to talk to all of these people and to hear those stories, because I never heard them in my family. But yes, as we all have this German legacy, we know that we are responsible. And to dig in deeper into the family history.
Okay, thank you. Merit, do you have any idea why the lady chose to share her story for the first time to you rather than to anybody else? And was the fact that you're German significant? Do you feel it's an act of reconciliation?
Yes, I think that was, she told me her story because I was German, and so it was easier for her to tell the story. Yeah, that's what she said, and I can understand.
Do you know whether she told her story then to her own family?
She had never before. I mean, they knew that she had been hidden, but never the whole story and all, with all the details. She had never told the story before, no.
Do you know she told them afterwards, after she told you?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know, no.
Okay. So we've got a lovely comment as well, which says that your messages are all inspiring and fill me with hope. You're all brave and full of humility and are telling the world how to move forward, which is lovely. And one more question. Do you feel, having had your experience and with your understanding from meeting survivors, that you are in any way out of step with your peers in Germany?
I definitely think so, because a lot of people also have this narrative of So that in the past we should focus more on what happens today and about the racism, what happens today. But I think also by learning about the history, we can, fight the fights of today of discrimination and just value this and yeah. So
I think so too.
yeah.
Because I think we were given a gift by so many people that we carry now in us. So we have something to cherish and to put into the future with us.
Amazing. So I think that's all the questions we have. So
Yep.
Susanne, can I hand back to you?
Yeah, thank you very much, Roz. And there has a comment has reached me directly as well, a very lovely comment, which I would also like to share from Andrew. He's commending the magnificent young people, you three here, and the precious work of the ARSP. So this is lovely indeed, and also a big thank you to you and the hard work you've been doing along those lines. But perhaps this precious work is, of course, extremely important for the years to come. But in your view, what still needs to be done on all sorts of levels to make sure that programs like the ARSP is going to continue the way, or even that we have more programs like that more young people get involved? So what do we need to do on different levels of society to keep this wonderful work going, from your point of view?
I think we have to promote it better, because many people don't know about it. Mm-hmm. And it's such a wonderful work that is so not familiar to many people. So just promote it better, go into schools and talk about it. And
Mm-hmm. I also think that mentioning school is really, really important, because I think when you learn about something, then only then you can think about it. And I think schools should do a lot more, like trips to Auschwitz or trips to Berlin, to the Holocaust Memorial, because I think through those you feel something when you're there. You don't only read something, but you feel something, and that's what you remember. You don't remember exact data from your history book. You remember what you felt, what it did to you, and that can be a spark, like it was for Merit, because she was there, she felt something, and then she knew she wanted to do something. And I think ARSP is an absolutely amazing organization, but I didn't know about them. I only knew about them because of my friend. And I only knew about them better than because I inquired, and not because I was told by someone out of the blue. So I think there's a lot of publicity work that needs to be done by them. And I just hope they continue to get the funding that they need to do the work, because it's just crucial.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Anybody else? Ricarda, what would you say?
I think it's also important to address different social levels, because in a way we maybe come from backgrounds where parents also understand that it's important to do a voluntary service, but maybe in other bubbles, children have to go to work straight after school or to uni. And maybe older generations from different backgrounds don't really understand how big the value is of doing a voluntary service and work with Holocaust survivors. So then again, there should be more promotion and education.
Mm-hmm. But then it's also the question of if you can afford it. So I think it would be hard for other people to do what we did, just financially speaking.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but that's a very important point. And there are various other programs that the German government obviously is doing with schools, with also the activity Demokratie leben, live democracy, which also goes towards this end of reconciliation, peaceful relations with other countries, but also a program that is called Young People Remember. So there are various programs, but I guess you're right to sort of spread the word and to make young people aware at every level of their education and their lives is crucial. And we've got another comment that reached me directly. I would like to filter that in. Do you think the German people were more willing to accept almost 1 million Syrian refugees because of the Holocaust? This is a very, very broad question. Perhaps, I don't know who wants to go and have a go at that question. What do you think?
I think so. I mean, the others are probably better equipped to answer the question. I'm the one studying design. They're doing law and politics, but I think so. I think there's for us, when we moved to England, there's a very, very different cultural approach to not only the Second and the First World War, but also its own history. Germans are very, not shy about their history, but they're very aware. Maybe in our social level they are, but it's also, you just get really, you have to give something. You can't just say no to something like this. And I can't think of the right word for it, but I certainly think that our history has shaped the way we approach social issues like this. It's also shaped how our immigration laws are. I'm very, very sure of that. I think if Germany would behave in certain ways different, criticism could come in quite easy, and not only from others, but from itself. I think Germans and German government is quite critical of itself when it comes to issues like this. But maybe the others can say something because they're much better equipped.
No, I agree with you totally. I believe that, yeah, it is, this chapter of history is part of our DNA, and it also affects how we deal with social issues today. However, there are still many people who don't know about it, who don't care, and who don't welcome refugees. But yeah, for some, it has an impact. Yeah.
Yeah, I also feel that because I answered the question before and I said that I'm a very liberal young bubble, but I feel like the feeling in Germany was, we're happy that Angela Merkel allowed this to happen, but we wish she did it a bit differently. I think that was a very broad public opinion. I don't know if you two agree with me on that, but that's how I've received it.
Yeah. I think it changed in 2015 after, I mean, yeah. In 2015, there was a very welcoming atmosphere, and then maybe it dropped a little.
Yeah.
I have a feeling maybe in 2015 that there were also a lot of people not welcoming, but by now, because yeah, it was 6 years ago, and we don't see the refugees anymore because they're integrated. So now no one says that, oh, it wasn't that bad. So
it really depends where you look. I think also if people live very close to a refugee home in a small town, or if it's a big city where it just kind of fiddles out, that there are more people all of a sudden.
Yeah, in 2015, but now they don't live in refugee homes anymore.
Oh, there still are some. When I lived in Hamburg, right next to my university, there was like a refugee village, and it was containers. It wasn't houses.
Okay, I think I'm moving on to the next question that came in. It's not a question, it's more like a comment, but maybe a question attached to it. From Leslie, who said that there was a Stolpersteine, that Stolpersteine were laid for his mother's uncle, aunt, and 2 children in Potsdam, and that one of the stipulations was that children had to be involved, school children, in the research and in the presentation, and that is one element that basically shows that you can involve young people in various of activities. Stolpersteine is one activity, but obviously the other programs I mentioned that are sort of done by the German government, and many other people involved are there to sort of involve young people. Is that something you recognize from your home country, home cities in Germany, and home regions? Projects regarding like Stolpersteine, is that something you recognize?
Yeah, that was actually a Stolperstein laid down in the street where my school was, but only the like the head girl was involved in that. But as I was friends with her, I knew it was happening. But I also have a very, very politically active teacher at my school who's a history teacher. So he runs this work group of, like, it's a colorful work group, that's what it's called in a way. And he takes people to Berlin. He goes with them to Berlin each year, and they go to the Bundestag, and they'll go to the memorial, and they go to the Jewish Museum, and they do all sorts of things. And it was really funny because once I was having a conversation with him and another girl, and she was complaining to him that he's taking everyone, you know, people who were not really active, but they were like, oh, I want to go to Berlin, so can I be part of you? And he took everyone. So he took a group of like 40, 50 people, and he said, I'm taking them because now they're not aware, but they want to go to Berlin. When I take them and I expose them to those things, they will be aware. And trust me, next year they'll be doing the work. They'll be earning their place. And it's always been like that.
We in our school had also this tradition on Holocaust Memorial Day. We would do a service and clean the Stolpersteine. So also in my university in Maastricht, there is this action that on Holocaust Memorial Day, the Stolpersteine are cleansed. And we have a little synagogue who wasn't destroyed during the war. So they are really active of educating about the Jewish culture, about Jewish life in Minden. So there are some actions.
Yes, I have a group of friends here from ARSP, and normally we go on the 9th of November to clean the Stolpersteine. And last year we met and they had already been cleaned by others. So that was a great experience. So yeah, there are other people who care about the Stolpersteine and things connected to it.
Yeah, fantastic. And you may also know, and some of our audience may also know, that currently, or this year, we are celebrating 1,700 years of Jewish life in Germany as well, to broaden the scope of what Jewish life has brought to German culture and to Germany, and to bring that out as a way to celebrate these relations as well. So this is probably also worth mentioning, because it's taking place in various activities and projects, and also delving into each town's history and the Jewish relations there across the country and across this whole year. And I'm moving on to the next question. What ideas do you have about dealing with latent anti-Semitic views in Germany, which are regularly polled around 30%? This is a question from Alan. What would you say? Ideas about latent anti-Semitic views in Germany?
I don't know that word. What does that mean?
When it's not out in the open, but basically simmering under the surface.
I like to point out to people that they're being anti-Semitic without them knowing. So I do have a lot of discussions like that where I have to point out to people, sorry, but what you're doing right now is anti-Semitic. So I think a lot of people are not even aware that they are. And I don't want to open Pandora's box, but Israel and critique of it, that's a big topic. And I think you can be critical of Israel without being anti-Semitic. It's possible, but I think a lot of people are not aware that they are being anti-Semitic with their critique. So that's something I actually had a discussion about yesterday with friends that I met here. So not really an opinion, just an observation from my part.
Okay, thank you. Ricarda, Merit, anything on that question before I hand over or hand back to Roz? She's collected a few other questions for you.
I agree with Sophia that some people are anti-Semitic, maybe without them knowing, or maybe with them knowing but trying to hide it. And then if you address it, not just say, oh, you're anti-Semitic, but yeah, asking them why they think what they just said is the truth. And once they need to explain it, you get to know that it's like totally without any logic. And by continuing those dialogues, I think we can fight anti-Semitism.
Yeah, so I rarely experience anti-Semitism in my daily life, but obviously there is some kind of anti-Semitism in society, very deep. But yeah, I read more about it in the newspaper, to be honest.
Mm-hmm. No, thank you. Then I'll hand over to Susan, who has collected a few more questions for you.
Hello. First of all, it's lovely to see all of you. And I've been inundated with lots of comments on my phone from AJR staff saying how lovely it is to see you all and how grown up you are. I think we all feel like proud Jewish mothers. So you always said you worked with a bunch of Jewish mothers looking after all of you. So we're all very proud of you. I've had actually a really moving comment from a second generation who has said she wants to let you know that this session has been so healing for her as the daughter of a survivor. It has helped her know that young people such as you care and are educating future generations. And I have to say, I found that really moving. And I hope you did too. A couple of other comments before we wrap up with again, AJR staff saying how wonderful the ARSP girls were to work with and how willing, interested, delightful and hardworking. And I think everyone at AJR learned from you too. And that's really an important part of the programme, that we work together. So it's been delightful to see you. I know we're going to be seeing you tomorrow.